Hello everyone, it's David LaFazia. The course that I built in D2L is an electrical basics class that I had actually recently designed as a self-paced online course for Blackboard under workforce development. So I put the entire course in because it's a very short course. It's pretty packed. It has some nice levels of interactivity and things, but what I did for this program was instead of making it self-paced really, I put it out in specific weeks, have some asynchronous discussions going on, and added a little bit more in terms of student accountability and those types of things. So you'll see that as I go through. I think I'll leave it in teacher mode as we go through. But my overview I kept really short, just like a very brief introduction to myself. I wanted to make sure the students had me kind of in their mind. And I've taken online classes before. It really helps to have a video of the instructor because then you can kind of imagine them there while they're making statements as they go through or send emails. So it's kind of nice when you never actually see your instructor face to face to see them at the very beginning. So maybe we will switch to student view. It'll be a little cleaner. Let's see. Sure. All right. The course schedule will show a couple things because I did actually program a lot of the week content into recent weeks, but of course now we're near the end of those dates that I had input. I didn't put dates in for every activity or assignment, but I did want to make sure that the weeks themselves were lineated or delineated, I guess the word is. Right, so table of contents is actually one of the places in the end that I ended up working from for the most part because you can start here and build everything right in the table of contents. It does hide a few things in the description, but otherwise this is a nice clean place to start from. So I referenced in the overview the week 0, the start point. I wanted to make sure that was very clear to the students. And I go through the course expectations. This is an adapted form of the assignment that we had made earlier in the course. And I teach students how to pass the course, basically what the basic expectations and requirements are of the course syllabus and objectives, and I link to these objectives all throughout the weeks and a basic course description of my own. And then I have some Adobe Captivate modules or activities that I had put together for the Blackboard version, and unfortunately when I tried to import these there really was no carryover. I investigated how you are able to import Adobe Captivate into D2L, and it looks like you actually have to go back into the original files and change them a bit and change the SCORM settings and those types of things. So instead I've put placeholders here as assignments. So they're actually pretty cool. Adobe Captivate is something I'm still working on getting better at, but I've become pretty good at it over the last year. Anyway, they move on to week 1. I'd put some type of adaptive release in here. If this was, completely how do I want to say, if this was completely published. So you can see that I linked to all the MPOs that are relevant for the week, give them the full description, and I've added some guiding questions as well. And then literally I've given them a number of videos and online materials, some assignments. Again, the Adobe Captivate would lead them through lessons that I've created, and activities and mini quizzes. Checks for understanding are embedded in these Adobe Captivate files. And most of these videos are videos that I created myself. So again, I think it's important that the student feels that the instructor is there with them throughout these online classes. It's not 5 different instructors or 5 different creators working together. I think that for the G20 class, because of the level of feedback and and the number of touch points that we received, that was still achieved even without these little videos. So this is, again, something that you would do in an online class. Electrical basics class is something that you would want to do face-to-face too, so I try to make it as close to that as possible, because most of the people that are signing up for these classes are still used to face-to-face courses. So I actually did learn that you can change a lot in terms of the font type, the font face. You can put images in, which I thought was a really good value for Blackboard, or something that added a lot visually. And so I didn't learn some of this until very recently in creating this course here. And that was a pleasant surprise, because I thought that D2L was somewhat limited visually. It was just a whole bunch of black and blue. But now that I know how to creatively design the descriptions and how easy it is to paste images, Blackboard really wasn't as easy. It was getting there in the later versions, but D2L actually is a bit easier on there. There is in the, you'll love this. Pause if you want to read. There is a little bit of a qualm that I have. A lot of the quizzes that I had just designed for Blackboard used hotspots, because I wanted to make this as interactive as possible. And I found out that in D2L you can use hotspots, just not within the assessments. So there is this whole hotspot, which, if you don't know what that is, it's clicking on images, different sections of images. There's this whole hotspot module within D2L where you can actually create, I would say, Adobe Captivate-like lessons in D2L. And so each section you could actually have a multiple choice question, for instance, pop up when you click on it. And it's almost like a map. It really is like an image map if you're an HTML buff. So that was week one. I was as creative as I could be with some sub-modules there. I had an experimentation section, a lab. Again, week two, basic introduction, linking to the MPOs, and a number of videos, again, featuring mostly myself or made by myself, and experimenting with putting some of the images in here to kind of break it up, embedding things within sub-modules. And it's, of course, visually something that I needed to get used to, and so I did learn a lot throughout this process, which I was happy about. I didn't think that D2L was going to allow me to be as visually creative as I like to be. I like to have a lot of variation visually here, so it's a start. I'll get better at it as I go on. So again, lots of assessments built in. I have formative assessments in the would-be Adobe Captivate lessons, and then summative assessments at the end of each module or week. And then the LMS tool is the discussion board. And of course, I did, when I was doing these videos, go back and make sure that they were closed captioned. YouTube, surprisingly, is very spot on. Maybe like 98% of the words, maybe 99% of the words that I had in my videos, they did very well in interpreting and putting in English. My name they butchered, but that's okay. So that's something I really like about YouTube, but I made sure that they were closed captioned enabled. And that was one of the foci that I had for the class in terms of accessibility. So week three, similar, just guiding questions at this point. And I got a little bit more creative with some of the embedding, added a written reflection, which is not something that I had thought of at all in the class before. And I had a lot of time to really reflect myself on what I wanted the students to show me in terms of their level of engagement with the material. So there's more that I've thought of along the way than what is actually shown here. So as I go back and redevelop other courses from Blackboard into D2L or create new courses, I'm going to be using some of those ideas along the way. So this class really helped me to revisit what CCIT has been asking us to do, and I think what Dr. Kralovic had said before, the hope is, as you move from Blackboard to D2L, instead, what Rick said was you should not just course copy, you should really be redesigning and taking a hard look at your material. So this was a good opportunity for that. So same format, some formative assessments, highly interactive with the Adobe Captivate assignments, and then you have the social aspect with the discussions. The requirements were outlined in the expectations, and a module quiz at the end of each week. Week 4, same thing. Basically, this is where they learn how to use multimeters in the course. They play around with virtual multimeters, and then in the quiz, they actually have photos of multimeters, and they're required to choose settings. They're required to select different points on the multimeters. And what I would do in the future is I would actually go in and learn how to design those hotspot activities within D2L, because it sounds like they have a pretty good functionality. It just takes a little bit of effort to figure out how to do that. So that's the next step for me. And then in this particular course, they have a link that generates an email, and what they need to do is contact someone saying, hey, I've completed this. That person goes in, verifies they've met the competencies to a minimum of 75%, and then they issue a certificate of completion for the course. And then get their continuing education units, CEUs. All right, so that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I'm very happy with the fact that I've gotten a lot more comfortable with D2L. It's finally starting to feel a little bit more like home, and I am very pleased that I found some things that I prefer in D2L over Blackboard, and that was not expected.